the readings, you've got two numbers. The first number is the client's number. So, and then the second number is the number of readings they've had. And on all sorts of topics, you know, all sorts of health conditions you can imagine. And the word spread because stories about him. Well, he was very famous around where they lived in Hopkinsville and all around there. But then this Al Lane must have written to the New York Times because he had Edgar in a room over his wife's wool shop. Al Lane, his wife, had a wool shop, and upstairs he had this therapy room with a couch in. And I think at first it was just once or twice a week. And then more and more people got to know, and the word spread. So Al Lane wrote to the New York Times about Edgar Cayce. And that's when it really took off, and people from all over the place were contacting Edgar direct. And he was really working very hard, wasn't he? But everything was written down and numbered, catalogued. So people like... Have you got any more to say about Edgar Cayce before I go on to what the work? No. Right. Right. This is one called Reverse Your Arthritis. So this person, Deepu Nagrani, was very interested in arthritis. And he went into all the readings because they were catalogued and under subjects. And you could research your topic, your favourite topic, whatever it was, and you could compile a lot of information. So there was arthritis, schizophrenia. Now, I actually met this guy. He came over to do a weekend, and that was fascinating. That was like schizophrenia. That's the kind of book people wrote, and very, very useful. Right. My youngest daughter's 35, and that's how I remember. When she was about 3, we went to a fair. We had a stand at a fair in Low Fell. Is it called? There's a hotel there on the main road at Springfield. That's it. Is it? And they used to put a lot of fairs on, didn't they? Pardon?
That's why I thought it was Springfield.
Yes. Right. Yeah. They used to put a lot of shows on there. So we went. I thought it.
Springfield's on the film, the one behind it is.
Right. So we went to a fair. We took the shop to a fair, and Stephanie was 3. My daughter was 3. That's how I remember. And we met John Walsh there, who was had a stand with all Cayce books in, Edgar Cayce books. So I got chatting to him, and he was telling me that he was Irish. He used to be a monk between the age of 20 and 40. And then I've got a few friends who have been monks and nuns, and quite often they become disillusioned and they move out and go into the world, you know. And he became a teacher in London at the Brixton riots. Was that something that went on? And his school was involved in that. But he got arthritis. It wasn't indicated then. He got arthritis. And he said, oh my goodness, and I teach football. So he went to the library to try and get a book. And this book fell out of the cupboard, out of the bookcase. And it was a book on arthritis somebody had written about Edgar Cayce. So he picked it up, borrowed it, and followed it, and it cured his arthritis. So he became very interested in it, and he studied more. And then he became the UK and the EU representatives for the organisation which was in Virginia Beach in America. And that's what he was doing when I met him. So he sold his flat in London, and he looked for the cheapest place in the country to live. And it was Stanley in Durham. And he moved to Stanley, and he bought 3 houses for the price of his London flat. He bought a house to live in, a house for the centre, and a house to sell. So we used to go to the centre a lot, and John used to travel all over the place giving talks. And he introduced so much information to us all. Right, yeah, Edgar Cayce recommended people use study groups, which is a group of people meeting in their homes, and he brought through a program to follow, which John Walsh introduced us to. And it always included the Lord's Prayer. He always started off, because even though he did all this, you might call wacky way out stuff, that some people might think it's that, to us it's normal. And he always kept his Christian foundation all the time, even though he was talking about past lives and Egypt and amazing stuff, Atlantis and all sorts of stuff. So you had this little program which you worked through every week, and at the start of the meeting, you have I just go through what we did. You have a short silence to gather our thoughts to our common purpose, which is to come to know ourselves and our relationship with God, and to align our wills with His. Then you have a quiet moment. Also, let us affirm our ideal, which is to make manifest the universal Christ consciousness and to manifest the love of God and man. Then you have a quiet time. Then you do the Lord's Prayer. And then he was very keen on doing spiritual assignments, and you choose one for the next week. And he had a little list of things about helping others. And anyway, we did this for many, many years. And it was really good, actually. If anybody wants information, where else did you find this from, besides people like me that had a group?
There's an EO website.
Is it on that?
They'll have that information.
Right. Now, the ARE is the what's it called? Association of Research and Enlightenment. Right. Edgar Cayce started this because he became so well known, and he didn't charge, but people gave bequests. And he built this college or centre in Virginia Beach, which I've had the great fortune to visit. I didn't build up my expectations, but it went far beyond my expectations. And it had, during the war years and everything, it had, faltering fortunes, but it still survived. And his grandson runs it, Edgar Cayce. It's related. And I went about 4 or 5 years ago, and because they have a conference in about June, and anybody can go from around. All the people go from all over the world. It's less known in the UK than it is in other countries for some strange reason. And so you meet a lot of amazing people. Everything is free. Nothing, no talks are charged for. The interesting bit is when I was there, they don't serve meals, so you had to go down into Virginia Beach and I'm still recording. And have them and come back. But I forgot to take I booked a car, but I'd forgotten to take my driving license, so we had to go everywhere by bus. It actually turned out better, because people were giving us lifts, and we met people at bus stops, and it was absolutely wonderful. And it was so enlightening to see that it was so alive, and they had this hall of records with all these readings in that anybody could go into and look things up. And you met amazing people, that doctors and scientists that came in with their pet topic, and they would look up the stuff connected with that. So it really was a wonderful experience. I'd love to go again, actually. But you get tied up with things, don't you? I don't know how the time's going, Mark. What time does it say? I can't see it. Pardon?
25 past 8.
25 past 8. What time do you finish? All right. Right. So anyway, there's all these subjects that people use that go into. I must read this one, because this is what I work in mostly. There's a whole file in allergies. Now, there are CDs, and I didn't bring them actually, with all this stuff on in different topics and subjects of health problems. And I actually printed off this thing about allergies. I can't remember reading it. With me coming here, I've been looking out certain things. So I'm going to read it, because this is what I work with mostly. So it's vast. The amount of stuff he brought through was absolutely immense. One of the big things he recommended was castor oil. Now, castor oil is used loads in America, and it's used loads in Eastern Europe, but in the UK, nobody's heard of it very much. And so we use it a lot. He also developed, oh look, I've got this, what we call the charred oak keg. You can all get these all off the Cayce website, you know. And this is, you can buy. We actually, this person, John Walsh, the ex-monk, he used to import from America remedies and things which he would sell in the UK and the EU. Then he died, so I took it on. People thought I'd take on what he was doing, like arranging conferences and travelling around the world giving talks. There's no way I can do that. He developed these gadgets, and one was the charred oak keg, where you put Calvados, you know, apple brandy, I think it's a French thing. Yeah, and you soak this little oak keg thing, a barrel, you soak it in water, then you put this Calvados stuff in and you inhale it, and people still want to buy it. And I said, well, you buy it direct from there. And there was a guy in Heaton who used to make some of the gadgets. Do you remember that bit? Well, I can't remember his name. I think he died, but he was a total Cayce follower, and he used to make some of the gadgets up that people still ask me for them. And what's this one? The impedance device. Now, I've never really understood that. And they use they use things like gold chloride, and people still ask for it because they've got this impedance. I think that guy in Heaton developed from Cayce's instructions. These are all from his instructions. They developed these gadgets, and they use gold chloride and something else. And that was for cancer actually. And you'd sit and hold these things, and this thing would chug away, I suppose. So you see how vast the things are that we did. One of the greatest things that happened in the Northeast was John Walsh had annual Cayce conferences at Durham University, and he'd take over one of the colleges. I can't remember the name. And, you know, take over all the rooms and everything, and use the dining room. The whole place was, because people came from all over the world. And it was absolutely wonderful. And he'd have various speakers in. I used to talk a bit about crystals. But you had people, and people would come from America especially to give talks, you know. And these are people who'd written books, and they would give a weekend workshop and give talks. And if somebody had the time and energy, that could all be restarted.
In the Northeast?
Yes. And John wrote a newsletter, a bi-monthly thing. Yeah, that was that. He wrote that every week. Not every week. Eh? I don't know. If you really, yeah. So it was quite a big. I'll pass it round actually because it's loads of stuff. Look at that, you know. So that was once every 2 months. The power of a smile. People would write things in, and he'd include it. I'll pass that round actually. So that was the newsletter that was produced. This is the format that we used for the study groups, with loads and loads of stuff. I'll pass that round that side.
Is this paper still there?
This one? No. Unfortunately, John did so much work that it became too work orientated, and he didn't have any balance, any work-life balance.
It's very difficult to get at.
Yeah, because he was dedicated to it, and he became ill and died. But it's all he did. That he didn't really have any break from it. And I used to go over there and see him quite a bit and help. And I said, "What do you do for leisure, John. He said, well, it's when I have visitors like you. Just having visitors was his leisure, was his sort of break. Just having people come and talk to him.
There was a lot of volumes of Edgar
Edgar.
Cayce's work, wasn't there? There was
Oh,
quite a
yeah.
few volumes.
Yes, and they've got it, you can get it on a CD-ROM, a CD.
Oh.
Oh, I've got a few CDs. I've printed some of that stuff off.
They do about 14,000 readings or something.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
huge amounts. So it's a big
Were
miss.
the readings recorded then, rather than sworn?
Not recorded, written, because
Right.
this finished in 1944.
Yeah,
That's when he died, you see.
There was a young girl called Gladys Davis.
That's right. Gladys Davis, was it?
Yeah, Gladys Davis.
Or Turner.
Gladys Davis.
Right, okay, yeah.
Could be Turner.
Yeah.
Um,
She became his permanent stenographer. It's all handwritten. Perhaps she wrote shorthand, I don't know.
Yeah, she used to write everything down. And there was, she would, I just saw a clip of her, and she said, Edgar came up with a lot of short bursts of things to do. And she was thinking, well, how do I record that? Do I put dashes, dots?
Oh, right.
And he said, well, I'll just put commas. So you could see recording as he went on. But the reason why it was all numbered was because she always sent a report to the client or the customer. For confidentiality, she would scribble up the name and put a number. So all the numbers linked up to an actual person, but it was confidential. So that's why they could open it up to everybody. But there's absolutely volumes of books. And people are still going back today, looking at readings. One of the ones I quite like, because I'm quite like the Gnostic approach. And one of the things is about the essences. And often people thought that, religious leaders thought that the essences were an offshot of the Jewish.
Oh, the Essenes.
Essenes,
That's
Arabic,
right.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I didn't.
a monk order.
Yes.
And it was
Yeah.
Cayce who, like, in the 30s described what it was actually like. And it had children, had males, females, and everybody was literally equal in that sense. And it partaking and shared the knowledge sharing and things.
They were the early Christians, weren't
Yeah, and often it was thought that was just a male sect, an offset of the Jewish order, and then he was poo-pooed all the way through until actually 1945 when he found the Dead Sea Scrolls,
they? Oh, right.
and that's when those readings came through. So people have been going back again, looking at what he actually wrote. So some of the readings he had are just immense. Like particular world wars, the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the stock market crash in the 30s, just about everything.
Did he write anything himself, or was it all written later from the transcription?
It was all from his transcript, so it was all documented as he did his reading, so word for word. So
People have gone into the
nowadays you
readings
sit
and-
with a tape recorder or something like that.
No, I just didn't know if he was an author of books as well.
I don't
That
think.
is what I think will fall into it.
I think it was other people. I think himself was just.
I don't think he wrote books. He just did the readings in this translate to whatever subject was asked of him.
Did you
Oh.
remember one in your front? Did you only got one? Auras, it was called.
Auras, yeah. Auras.
Auras.
He wrote on everything, you know.
It says the only book that he wrote.
Oh, right, sorry.
20 pages. And
Yes.
It's called Auras.
Auras.
Connects cause in the aura with notes, with planets, with possible health disorders. That's only one book. God knows how many other books as well.
Had a lot of conflicts, didn't he? I've read that
Well, he did.
he was very much into his church, but then he was coming up with past life regression.
Well, he came to terms with it eventually. It was at first. that he had conflicts, but he had conflicts all through his life because he was a psychic kid, and it was poo-pooed, I think, or he thought it was not right because other people weren't doing what he was doing. And then he had conflicts over his father being very racist, very openly racist. And Edgar used to think, well, how can he be racist when he's had those people working in his tobacco farm and people working in his family with the children? So, you know, Edgar couldn't understand why he was so racist.
Have you heard of something called psychic surgery?
Oh, yes, very much so, yes.
And that's like something what's, you know, on the
Yeah.
lines where you go into trance, you
Yes.
connect with what we call higher self
Mm.
in the guide and perform surgery.
I've actually seen that done.
Have you? It's
Mm.
I've seen a video.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. The thing is with that sort of stuff now, the only thing I think is people don't train enough for it.
Yeah.
They think they can, just go in and do it,
No,
But I've known some amazing people that work in things like that. And the best one I've known was a guy called Gordon Higginson, who was a medium, but he was also president of the Spiritualist National Union. Pardon?
Ascension.
Yeah. And he had a church somewhere in Staffordshire, but because he was president, he was down a lot at Stansted, which is the headquarters, Stansted Hall.
Finley College.
That's right. It was, Stansted Hall was given to the Spiritualist National Union, and they gave part of it to the airport on condition they didn't fly over the hall. And I stayed there, you never hear aeroplanes.
No,
And it's not very far.
quiet there, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, he was amazing. You'd go into a room and you'd be just standing looking out of the window, wouldn't even look at you. And you sit down and he'd give you a reading. But he trained, his mother was, it often goes in families.
Yes.
There were 4 boys, but only he took it up, and his mother was a medium. And she made him train for 7 years before he uttered a word to anybody else,
Yeah.
But nowadays they want instant results, And but this study group is a great thing. It's a lovely social thing to do. What is supposed to happen? People are supposed to branch off and do their own groups, but they never did that with me. They all stayed, and so eventually we moved on to meditation group at this where we work from, I think. But it would be lovely to have a bit of a resurgence because the stuff is all out there. It's active. They've got amazing people involved. And anyway, I'll tell you about Virginia Beach, the ARE, Association of Research and Enlightenment. It's a huge cul-de-sac, huge, and with a road going along, and then the beach, Virginia Beach, so it's right on the beach. And one whole side of the cul-de-sac is the centre, or the college, or whatever you want to call it, where you go for talks and meetings and everything. And then the top of the cul-de-sac is what they call the hospital, but nobody stays overnight. You can go there for various therapies. It's all free. And then the other side is for the research, and they've got houses and places where they do all this research stuff. And I was there, I went for a week this time in June years ago, and this backpacker walked in, and a young lad, and he was very interested. So he knocked on whoever the grandson was that was running it. I can't remember the name of him, something like Hugh Cayce. He knocked on his door, and this person that answered it and gave him a guided tour around the place, just like that, And he ran it. There was no airs and graces. Yes, it's one of the best things I've ever done, actually.
The other thing I heard was he had conflict with money. Constantly had people coming and trying to set up companies, taking advantage of his readings,
Oh, yeah.
and he kept declining them.
I think you try. Sometimes the approach was from a government agency as well, particularly with oil exploration, and you would take on some of those, but that was a big conflict with him. Again, he was successful sometimes, but other times he wasn't, because from his higher self, this was a conflict, and the readings would become, as I say, fuzzy,
Yeah.
or not always interpreted, because one of the things Casey always said, it's not just about me as the reader, the psychic. It's the person themselves that put that information forward. It's like a computer in the saying is rubbish in, rubbish out type thing. So quite often when people come through with their information, it's very much how they guide that information to him. And obviously, if it's a person that's concerned about their own health and that's quite very honest about it, and what's there and what's not there, if you've got somebody that's setting up a company or exploiting land, there's often going to be a little bit untruth there, so that would come and make the reading fuzzy. But a lot of people did make a lot of money from him, unwillingly or willingly, however they did do it.
There was an archaeological project in Egypt funded by the ARE, and they wanted to dig in certain areas, and the Egyptian authorities have really got well, it's their place, isn't it? And they weren't allowed to do it, but they're hoping that eventually they will. So they fund huge things.
Dr.
Yeah.
Zahira was
Yes,
yeah,
yes, that's
he
right.
wouldn't tell it.
No.
So where do they want to dig? Where do they want that?
Pardon?
Where do they want to dig?
Under the right paw of the Sphinx.
That's just like a case.
Well, he particularly he did, I don't know what it stated him now. He did have a...
Casey did a lot of readings about Atlantis,
Yes.
and you said they were one of the first civilizations. Obviously that's been a search for many people over many years, trying to find where Atlantis was, and because they were so highly technical, and they used a lot of crystals as well, and they sort of like a lot of civilizations do, they brought down their own downfall. But he says a sector of them have hidden a lot of records, a bit like sort of the Dead Sea Scrolls, Nag Hammadi, where there's records kept, and it was one of the areas was that they had put them in the right foot of the Sphinx, and that there was a young, I think he was German or Austrian archaeologist who didn't really know Cayce. He just he wasn't there for the ARE or anything. He was just there exploring the dimensions, and what he found is there was chambers down in those front paws, and from the echo readings he says there is definitely something there, but it's never been explored anymore. Obviously it's a sacred site, so that was the last research for that.
Well, Plato really was our main source of information on Atlantis, and he said the downfall was caused by the collapse of the crystal technology. But there's no written records, there's no written stuff from Atlantis, because it was all on computers, and that was the crystal technology, the silicon chips made from quartz. Yep. So the interesting thing with, I think why Cayce, this stuff has survived and thrived, is because of all the books written about it.
Yeah.
Really. So we need to write more, don't we? And somehow preserve them. But when you think, I mean, I had the organic guy come to inspect the bakery, because we're an organic bakery, and once a year we get this really in-depth check over, and you have all this stuff ready and waiting and in what God knows what. And he said, I just take photographs of everything. I don't like carrying papers. So he just came with a little light bag, and he just took pictures of everything. I thought, here we go, Atlantis over again. Or the record in his camera. Exactly. Well, that was what happened to Atlantis. The computers did go down. Yeah, I know. I mean, we're just surmising here, aren't we? I mean, saying the crystal technology was computers, but that's what I think. But
So where does he think Atlantis was? Or did he?
I think
the Azores. Well, that's what the modern people are thinking. That's what they're thinking now, but I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
Lots of people say they are Bermuda Triangle and other places like that, but
Whereabouts is the Azores?
It's off the coast of Africa, West Africa.
West Africa, yes. And how hard does it go up?
The Azores.
Mm.
Well,
Not-
the Azores-
not-
the
not
Azores
beyond
are quite
Africa.
small, they're just a
Mm.
chain of islands, small chain
Yeah.
of islands off
That's
the
right.
coast of Africa,
Yes.
north to West Africa.
Yeah. There was a programme about it, and it said not much research has been done on the Azores, not much is known about it. And I've got a suspicion it's around there because you've got the Gibraltar, the gateway thing, what do they call that? That was mentioned. But then we don't know. We need someone like Edgar Cayce. Well, perhaps he did write about it, I'm sure he did. You could look that up in the Cayce readings, where he thought Atlantis was. I think he did say something.
I think he's done a good number of readings, but I think to date nothing's come from it conclusively. Either is it future prediction, have we got the timelines wrong, is the mapping area wrong? So that's probably one to
Yeah, the
to look
timelines
into.
could probably be wrong because the Romans changed the timelines.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So does that, when Mark first asked me to do this talk on Cayce, and he said, he used a hypnotist, I said, no, he didn't. And he said, yes, he did.
And I was
It says in
confused as
Wikipedia.
well. No, and I knew you would go into a meditative state,
Yeah.
and I think, so I'm on the computer, and sure
Yeah.
enough, right from the beginning,
He did use
he
it
was right
to find his answers for his voice thing. And he went through many hypnotists, and they could cure it while he was in the trance, but afterwards it came back, the voice went back to a whisper. This went on for quite a long
It was
time.
similar to a technique called hysterical paralysis.
Mm.
There's a few new words for it. It's when a psychological effect takes a physical effect.
That's what it said, yeah.
And as an OT, I had 2 clients where that was the case. One of them was in a wheelchair, and if you looked at the muscle function and any movement, there was full muscle architecture there and nerve, but he believed he was paralysed. So he said, and he knew this himself, he says, Gary, you could pour petrol on me and set me alight, and I couldn't get up, I can't get up. It was that entrenched in his psyche that he couldn't.
What caused it in the first place?
It's usually, a lot of people actually